I would be remiss if I did not extend my thanks as well to the Honourable Stephen McNeil, Leader of the Liberal Party, and the Honourable Jamie Bailey, Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and all members of their respective caucuses for supporting this terrific effort as well.
Order. Order. Order, please. I will remind the honourable member that naming members is not appropriate in the House. I will ask the honourable member, when you're referring to the member, please refer to the Leader of the official opposition or the Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been so warned. I would like to acknowledge the support of all members of my constituency, all Nova Scotians, all Maritimers, and all Canadians who supported the Ship Start Here program. In spite of what some may say, I, for one, think this campaign really did make a difference. I'm glad we did it. I'm proud of those who organized it. There is no doubting here. All those in this chamber know that Ship Start Here, and now indeed everyone in Canada and around the world knows it too. Mr. Speaker, going into our third year of governing, I would argue that this has not been a bad effort on the economic front, and indeed I would further argue that it has been the biggest, best, and most significant effort in our 250-year history. Our second area of focus involved health care, and specifically was aimed at keeping emergency rooms open and reducing health care waits. I believe there's no one in this room, or no one listening, or who will read this and answer it at a later date, that will suggest that this is an easy goal to meet. Successive governments have tried and failed to make this happen. Our government, led by an extremely capable minister, the Honourable Maureen MacDonald, and her dedicated team, has made significant progress.
Order, order, please. Order. I'll remind you again, I know it's a rookie mistake, and I will remind you again that naming a member is not allowed in the chamber, so please refer to the honourable member or the member's seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or the minister responsible for that department. Thank you. The honourable member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do refer to the Minister of Health.
Thank you.
And her dedicated team has made significant progress. A commitment was made to open the hospital beds needed to admit patients stuck in ERs, and this process has begun. The Rapid Assessment Unit at the QE2 Healthcare Centre has diverted more than 1,000 patients in the past year, helping them receive the care they need sooner. An Emergency Department Protection Fund has been set up to hire needed doctors to keep ERs running. We said we would set up prehab teams to reduce wait times for orthopedic surgery, and this has been implemented. We said we would hire a provincial advisor to lead emergency care improvement, and we did. The report of Dr. Ross was widely acknowledged as a seminal document in rectifying ER difficulties. Implementation of his report continues apace. The Health Minister also promised ministerial accountability for emergency departments, and this has been implemented. Important to me, very important to me, was the commitment to provide coverage of expenses arising from out-of-province accommodation and travel. This was also expanded to caregivers and was instrumental in helping one of my very young constituents receive a highly specialized surgical procedure in California. This child was in California for 6 weeks, and had this policy not existed, her mother would have found it very difficult to accompany her, causing untold hardship for this family. I applaud the minister and our government for making this change and reducing stress and hardship for family members at a very difficult time. We made a commitment to hire more nurse practitioners, and we have. We introduced the Fair Drug Pricing Act and set up the widely used 811 helpline. To provide better care sooner, we have opened our first collaborative emergency centre in Parsboro, and we have 3 more planned for Pugwash, Spring Hill, and Tatamagouche. We have extended the ER hours and follow-up services for patients at the Cobequid Health Centre, taking pressure off other ERs and HRM. Through the Restore program, clot-busting drugs are now available on all ambulances in this province. This is a significant development as these drugs save lives when administered in a timely manner. All of these measures address systemic problems embedded in the system. Too often, there has been a rush to pour more money into the system to solve problems. It is our contention that many of the problems encountered in healthcare are structural rather than monetary. As Ministerial Assistant to the Minister of Health, I am extremely pleased with the significant progress that has been made to date. Thirdly, we made a commitment to ensure that young people stay here and build a life in Nova Scotia. For far too long, the outmigration of our young people has been a serious problem. It means our younger citizens leave Nova Scotia and grow the economies of Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and other parts of Canada while we stagnate. We wanted to change that, not talk about changing it, but to actually do it. We said we would provide tax incentives to keep Nova Scotia University and community college graduates here in Nova Scotia to grow our economy, and we did just that. We said that we would create 250 new community college seats targeted to high-demand trades and professions, and we did it. In light of the new SHIPS contract, we will be opening even more. We are fixing Canada's weakest student assistance program by capping tuition and investing $30 million in student bursaries. We said we would provide targeted support to keep community schools open and address shortages, and we did. We created 250 subsidized daycare spaces to allow single parents and other caregivers to return to school. Simply put, under the watchful eye of the current government, the single best opportunities for career advancement of our youth in the history of our province are now in place and available to any person who wishes to access them. The fourth plank in our plan was to take the HST off home energy to make life more affordable for Nova Scotia's families. Our first step in this regard was to roll back the Conservatives' 8% tax on electricity. We promised and initiated an independent review of auto insurance to ensure the lowest, fairest rates. Both of these initiatives have been popular and affect the bottom line of the average consumer, making life more affordable for Nova Scotians, and an important commitment made to residents of our province in the last election. A fifth tenet of our plan was to fix rural roads and keep communities strong, and we attacked this with a vengeance. We budgeted 50% more to resurface rural and secondary roads, acquiring chip sealing and paving equipment to keep us competitive. We said we would initiate a 5-year paving plan and make it available to the public, which we did, while at the same time enhancing bridge and truck inspections to improve safety. We launched a suburban priorities team to strategically address challenges facing suburban communities. To continue to strengthen rural communities, we doubled provincial targets for immigration and initiated an immigration job strategy. Mr. Speaker, our government established after-school lighthouse programs to give youth positive alternatives to occupy their time after school and to support the important work carried out by women's groups in many communities across our province. We increased and stabilized funding for transition houses and women's centres. Mr. Speaker, this is the first time that there has been a funding increase in 10 years, and I am proud that our government recognized this need and addressed it. Mr. Speaker, like many of the members on this side of the House and those opposite, I have a significant number of seniors in my constituency. Our seniors are among our most valued citizens. They laid the groundwork on which our communities are built and have provided the base on which we as the government must build. Mr. Speaker, the sixth stipulation in our plan was to give seniors options to stay in their own homes and communities longer. It is my belief that as MLAs, all members want to see this happen regardless of political stripe. Moving forward on this file, we began by eliminating security deposits for seniors in long-term care facilities. We implemented self-managed care allowances and personal alert assistance programs. We increased the number of long-term care beds and hired nurse practitioners to augment care in nursing homes. Changes to the cost of generic drugs through fair drug pricing legislation has also been a terrific benefit for our seniors. Mr. Speaker, I am of the opinion that this government and governments in the past and those to come in the future will be and should be judged, at least in part, in relation to how well they have cared for their seniors. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we told the people of Nova Scotia in the last election campaign that we would do everything that I've just reviewed while living within our means. We knew then, as we know now, that this would be a very difficult task. We also knew that the credit card was maxed out. A responsible administration could not and should not move forward on borrowed dollars, crippling future generations with a mountain of debt. Mr. Speaker, this being the case, we requested and carried out an immediate audit to determine the true state of the province's finances. As expected, it was not a pretty picture. Years of borrowing and living beyond our means had created a debt of $13 billion structural deficit that was forecast to balloon to $1.4 billion by 2014 if immediate action was not taken. Mr. Speaker, we decided to have a conversation with Nova Scotians about this. Absolutely. The Finance Minister, pardon me, undertook the most extensive consultation with the citizenry of this province that has ever been carried out. He is to be applauded for taking such a grassroots approach. I don't know. Let's see what you think about it. When the consult arrived in my town, I observed folks of all political stripes in the large audience that attended. Everyone who wished to speak did. Absolutely. The minister, to his credit, spoke little but listened a lot. It was the consensus of Nova Scotians after the compilation of all the data collected from these meetings that the most practical and reasonable approach to managing the fiscal mess handed to us was to increase the HST by 2% across the board, but while so doing, try to reduce the impact on the most vulnerable citizens in our population using a series of exemptions and tax credits to which I have referred earlier in my remarks. This was a bold, but I would argue necessary step. Mr. Speaker, those jurisdictions where serious measures have not been taken to control government spending are now seeing the folly of their inaction. I know all members here are aware of examples in the world, on our continent, and in our country where the attempts at expenditure control have not been tough enough or soon enough. Indeed, the world economy has been on the brink on a number of occasions simply because certain jurisdictions are unwilling to enact the tough measures required. Mr. Speaker, through bold leadership, we weathered the storm, and I am proud to report we are winning the battle. Mr. Speaker, to help small business, we reduced the small business tax rate in 2010 for the first time since 1992. And then we further reduced it this year. We downsized Cabinet, changed the way MLA's expenses are reported, underwent an expenditure review with a target of 1% savings, and balanced the budget. At the same time, we made 2 payments on the debt, the first in 26 years. Prior to this, only 7 payments had been made on the debt in the last 50. Mr. Speaker, we said we would get back to balance, and Mr. Speaker, we are getting back to balance. Although not commitments during the campaign, on the environmental front, we put a lifelong ban on uranium mining in Nova Scotia, banned the use of non-essential pesticides, put a cap on greenhouse emissions, and extend the moratorium on drilling on George's Bank indefinitely. Because we are aware of the importance of arts and culture plays in our daily lives and how it contributes to a healthy and vibrant society, because we know that those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it, and because we have a wonderfully strong, proud, and colorful heritage, we created the Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage to preserve and promote these values. We improved the film tax credit, and we are establishing Arts Nova Scotia to recognize the many positive contributions made by the artistic community, including the significant impact contributed by the arts to our economy. An artless society, Mr. Speaker, is a dead society, and we know it. Mr. Speaker, back in October of 2009, near the conclusion of my remarks, I said, and I quote, "You see, we practice what we preach. We support today's families in this province, but internally we operate as a family as well. We know that the whole is more important than the sum of its parts. We know that it is our duty to look after one another as well as our constituents. We know that everyone is an equal at the table, and we know that united behind our leader, we will build a kinder, gentler, more equitable Nova Scotia that treats all with dignity and respect while growing the economy and returning Nova Scotia to its rightful place within the confederation of our sister provinces in this country." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, I was not waxing poetic when I said that 2 years ago. The people wanted change, and change they got. They have received the most positive changes in decades on the environmental front, on the societal front, and on the economic front. Perhaps most importantly, all this was accomplished while living within our means. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of our mandate, I used to be asked by Nova Scotians, what have you been doing to make Nova Scotia a better place to live and raise a family? I'm no longer asked this question, Mr. Speaker, because the people are watching. People want results, and they're getting them in aces from this government. Aces from this government. You bet. I know it's hard to take. I know it's hard to take. May we continue to have the health, strength, and support of all Nova Scotians to stay the course and do the hard work that lies ahead. May God bless Nova Scotia, and may God bless Canada. Monsieur le Président, Monsieur Bicou, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
I will now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the last two speakers. One was a little bit shorter than the other, and I may have liked his content, but I liked your style. Mr. Speaker, that concludes the government's business for tonight, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we can do anything with the will of the House, you know, if we so wish. But you know what? I'm going to drop the hammer here and say that concludes the government's business for today, Mr. Speaker, where we will ask to sit again tomorrow from the hours of 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. after the daily routine. The government will be calling Bill 65. I wish we'd now rise to meet again at the hour of 2 p.m. tomorrow.
The notice for adjournment has been made. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. The motion is carried. We will now rise to sit again tomorrow between the hours of 2 p.m. and 6 p.m.